The Barbie movie was pretty good, actually. It was a good movie. I liked it. Despite what the Ben Shapiros of the world might have you believe, Barbie, I thought, was actually a really good movie. It was funny. It was well written. The sets were really good. I didn't expect the sets to be that good. The costume design, the sets, all that stuff. It had some awesome original music in there. Some that I think might give the Mario movie a little bit of competition this year. It also had one Ice Spice song, which I guess is mandatory for a movie in 2023. But overall, honestly, I really, really enjoyed it. It's weird because this movie, obviously, I wasn't expecting much. I was kind of expecting this childish Disney type movie. Oddly enough, it was this very weird political satire about gender inequality and gender expectations and what you're supposed to do from birth depending on what you are and you know, that kind of stuff. And in that sense, it surprised me in a very good way. I thought it was expertly executed, but it was also just really entertaining. It was really goofy. Even though some of the topics it talks about is very serious and the ending wants you to believe that it's this life-changing thing, the movie's also just really goofy, I thought. Extremely goofy, to the point where I'd say it even reminded me of the scary movies, the spoof movies that make fun of scary movies. It reminded me of that. Some of the effects were just kind of goofy. Some of the dialogue was making fun of itself. I thought it was really interesting how Mattel, the company who makes all the Barbies and stuff, basically said, okay, you guys can make a movie making fun of us. The entire movie basically just feels super self-aware. It makes fun of Mattel in every way possible, but it works. I don't know, there is some sort of wokeness to the movie, I'm not gonna lie. And I know people hate that term, but that's just kind of what it is, I guess. But who cares? This shit was awesome. I liked it.
And that's why it was one of the things that I've watched recently.
I then immediately watched Oppenheimer. Name a better duo than the Barbie movie and Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer is a really, really good movie. Who would have thought that Christopher Nolan, arguably most acclaimed actor of all time, made a good movie? Who would have thought? I'm gonna go on record saying Oppenheimer is easily one of, if not the best biopic I've ever seen. He does an awesome job explaining the journey and hardships that J. Robert Oppenheimer went through whilst creating the atomic bomb. It also does a really good job at showing the aftermath and how things might not have gone as expected after the great revelations in science, let's say. So the elephant in the room, obviously this movie is super long. It's 3 hours. It's a long time to be in the movie theater. This is something that I made fun of Avatar for. If you just make a really, really long movie, chances are it's gonna get boring at one point, and that just ruins a movie for me. And that is why I'm not giving Oppenheimer a perfect score, because I think that last point for me and for everyone else should just be kind of personal enjoyment. And although I really like this movie, and from a filmmaking perspective it's near perfect, there's something missing for me because there's just a lot of talking. And although the talking is very, very interesting, a lot of it after being in the theater for 2.5 hours is not. So, but listen, I'm not giving this a bad review. I'm not giving this a bad score. This is a great, great movie. A lot of people expected this movie to be a story about the bomb and its creation, when really it's a story about Oppenheimer and who he is. So although there are a lot of scenes with, let's make a bomb, let's blow this shit up, there's also a lot of scenes that have nothing to do with that. Just, be warned. It's a good movie. So is Barbie. Watch them both. Honestly, peak cinema. Let's go. I then watched Nimona. This is a Netflix animation. Those of you who watch these kinds of videos constantly know that I have a thing about Netflix. They don't have the best reputation. But you'll also know that I'm usually quite surprised, and that's because I'm very selective in what I watch. And I heard Nimona was really good, so I gave it a try, and yeah, it's really good. I didn't really know what to expect, and I'll be honest, I was kind of not feeling it at the very beginning. It's not surprising when I say that the animation style is a little weird at first. Obviously, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, but you just don't see very many movies with that kind of art style, so it can be a little jarring at first. But once you get 30 minutes into the movie, you definitely just get used to it, and it barely even bothers you anymore. And as for the story, this thing is really good. I really liked it. I'll be honest, this reminded me a lot of Shrek. I know that's kind of a weird comparison, and now that I'm thinking about it, the story actually has some similarities, but I more so meant the writing and the pacing and the comedy. Part of it really reminded me of Shrek for some reason, and Puss in Boots and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, all that to say that it was actually a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. I cried because I cried everything. I laughed. It kept me engaged. I was really interested. I will say that I can see how some people would get really annoyed at some characters, but I wasn't. I guess I was just kind of into it that day. I really like this movie. I would definitely recommend it. I'd honestly watch it right now. Do it. I then watched Triangle of Sadness. This is really exhausting. I'm not gonna lie. Triangle of Sadness is a very good movie in the sense that it's really well written and it's really clever with its dialogue. And oddly enough, it's actually very funny in a really dry sense of humor type of way, but I'd be lying if I said this wasn't an exhaustingly slow burn. The movie's kind of separated into different parts, different chapters, and although some parts felt more engaging than others, most of them felt like 4 hours long. And I get that that's kind of the point, because you're supposed to feel kind of annoyed and exhausted, but you can't just expect everyone to like that kind of stuff. When I initially watched this movie, I actually rated it a little higher than what I'm rating it now, but after thinking about it more now that some time has passed, I'm pretty confident in rating it what I rated it. It's a good movie, there's no denying that. If you watch it, the sound design is awesome, the sets are great, the acting's great, the storytelling is great. Like I said, it was funny. It's a good movie. I kind of don't really want to say anything because part of the movie is kind of just realizing what's going on, but if you're bored and kind of a masochist, I would just watch this. I then watched Sisu. This is like John Wick if John Wick was in the mid 1900s and a cowboy who likes to look for gold. If you've heard of this movie, you've already heard of that comparison. It's basically just a guy who, like, don't get in his way because he'll fucking kill you. Much like John Wick, it hits a lot of the same beats perfectly. You have this really badass main character who doesn't talk much but does everything else, and you really feel like he's unstoppable. Like, it's not just some old guy who's fluking his way through situations. It's like a little more brutal than John Wick, which, you know, John Wick's already kind of brutal enough. Sometimes you gotta, you know, pencil stabbing here and there, but it's just a badass movie. If you're just wanting to watch some action and watch a main character kind of just mow through everyone, this is the movie. But yeah, it's a cool movie. If you've never heard of it, like I said, John Wick, cowboy man. I then played Hogwarts Legacy. I said in a previous video like this that if I played through a game that was like impactful enough that I would talk about it here. This month I actually beat the entirety of Hogwarts Legacy. It came out I think like February of this year or something. I finally got around to playing it for the first time. I played it for like a couple hours and was instantly hooked. This game is absolutely awesome. I'm probably extremely biased because I love Harry Potter to begin with, but the game was awesome. It felt really good to have like a AAA style title game that wasn't just completely broken. I hate how the bar is that low, but yeah, it worked, which, you know, that was a big plus. All in all, I think Hogwarts Legacy was a great game. I think what I really liked about it is that going into it, pretty sure everyone thought this was just going to be, you know, the Harry Potter game, but after playing through it all, I can really say that this felt like a Hogwarts game, not a Harry Potter game, which is a good thing. It distanced itself enough from Harry Potter so that you don't just feel like you're recreating the movies, but it stayed close enough to feel like you're actually a part of the world. Does that make sense? A lot of the quests were varied. It didn't feel repetitive at all. The combat is awesome, especially when you get some of the crazier spells. The world is big enough to feel like you can explore things for the first time constantly. I really like the way they did the loot system, the armor system. It was a good game. I would recommend it if you got like 30 hours. It took me around that time to beat the whole game. Would recommend. Game of the Year contender. I then watched Manifest Season 4, I think. Season 4? The last season. Not gonna lie, I really like Manifest. I know it's kind of cheesy. I know it's not the most well-written show. It's kind of my guilty pleasure show. I really liked it. I was really interested to see where it was going. It's like kind of sort of sci-fi, and although the stakes do get high in like the realm of this TV show, it never really feels that serious. I'm really happy they finished the story because, you know, this is a show that got canceled, I think, once, maybe even twice, and then obviously went through an entire pandemic, and towards the end, there's like this writer strike thing, so let's just say the world wasn't on the show side. If you like this kind of fringe Lost mixed with CSI kinda, but then it also has like a Netflix spin where it's like corny, like Stranger Things, and it's like silly. That's what it is. I would watch it. It's not the best written show. Will it be talked about in 10 years? Honestly, probably not, but the performances were good. Josh Dallas finally got like his role, I guess, kind of like loving father who will do anything for his family. It's been done before, but he plays it, you know, to a T. Is it my favorite ending to a story? Maybe not. Looking back at it, I think it was probably the best outcome. I then watched Invitation to a Murder. This is like, what are those movies? Knives Out. This is like Knives Out. That's basically what it is. It's like the Agatha Christie whodunit type of movies, which I actually love. I love watching stuff like that. And this is basically just another take of this. Invitation to a Murder, you know, doesn't leave much to be desired. You basically know exactly what kind of show this is. And yeah, I mean, what can I say? It's basically just a worse Knives Out. It's a little bit more predictable than Knives Out, which I already, you know, will say is kind of predictable. From the very beginning, you're kind of looking at clues before the characters are, so you kind of understand things. Anyway, this show was good. The writing was okay. The acting was actually pretty good. The story was, you know, it was all right. The big twist is always like fun, although it kind of makes no sense if there's not like a good motive, which yeah, is a little like shaky in this one, but it's all right. I'm not gonna spend too much time on this one because honestly, I don't really remember it all that well. Yeah, that's that. There you go. Probably just go watch Knives Out if you haven't. honestly, that's probably a better movie. So I then watched a movie called Nobody. I probably should have covered this movie a little earlier in this video because again, it's kind of just like John Wick. Unlike John Wick and Sisu, which I covered earlier though, it kind of suffers from the problem where the main character isn't too believable. And that's from a writing perspective. That's not really from an acting perspective. The main character is played by Bob Odenkirk, which everyone knows as Saul Goodman. No one will be surprised to know that this guy is like an amazing actor. He deserves his Oscar and he did a good job with what he had in this one. It's just the way this character is written that makes him kind of like a fluke character, I guess. Where this one kind of fails is that he's just a little older and a little bit too normal to be getting away with this stuff. Sometimes he fights groups of like 5, 6 guys at once. Other than that, it was honestly a great show. The humor is really good, as Bob Odenkirk does, and also the dialogue was just good. The sequences were really cool, despite my gripes with it. I don't know if there ever will be a second one, but if there isn't, this movie will probably be forgotten about like forever, to be honest. But that's not to say I didn't enjoy it. I really enjoyed it. I love Saul. He's awesome. Bob, that's the joke. His name's Bob. And lastly, I watched Dungeons and Dragons. This movie came out earlier this year, I think, and is about, Dungeons and Dragons, like the board game, I guess. I don't know. I'm someone who knows nothing about Dungeons and Dragons, despite there being dungeons and dragons and like wizards and shit. Like I know a little bit, but I've never played it. I don't really know what I'm doing. So a lot of the references, I'm assuming, just like flew directly by my head. It kind of reminded me of like that Warcraft movie that came out. I played quite a bit of World of Warcraft, so I kind of understood the references in that movie. So as a standalone thing, there were some decisions made that I thought were really weird. Sometimes the main characters would do something and it's just kind of like, oh, here's a super secret thing that does everything we needed to do. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, just like whip that out of nowhere. I have this weird thing with Chris Pine. I like, I don't like him. I don't know why. His acting's okay. It wasn't bad. I liked it. The comedy was good. I actually really liked it a lot. The creatures look good. The effects looked really good. I could tell the movie had a budget. Everything didn't just look really fake. I think this movie actually exceeded expectations because anytime a movie is based on something that isn't a book, people just assume it's going to be trash, and for good reason, because it's usually trash. But this one, I think, exceeded that expectation. I think it did a little better than people were expecting, but it was okay. Give it a watch, I guess. I don't know. And that's what I watched recently. A lot of movies that were kind of similar to other movies that I really liked. Big standouts being Oppenheimer and Barbie, obviously, best movies of all time. But if you like this video, please give it a like. It helps out a lot. And please comment down more movies for me to watch because, if I haven't watched it before or I haven't watched it in a while, I might give your movie a chance. I always appreciate that very, very much. I appreciate you guys for watching. And yeah, thanks for watching.